to address us on this very important which have been mentioned. Over to you, Mr. Anthony. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the thank you so much for the good offering. I'm in the midst of experienced people, many who are far more experienced than me. So I'll try not to disappoint. So Sam, please, can you put up the presentation?
Please go ahead, I'm doing it.
Okay, so let me just start before Sam finally puts it up. So the topic is calming the storm. Communication tactics for government advisors during national unrest. One thing we have to realize is that no matter the title, whether it's an advisor, whether it's a publicity person, they still consider you as a public relations person. And when you get into the job as an advisor in that sector or a spokesperson, you will find out that they still refer to you or expect you to do the job of a public relations person. So the title is not a restriction because they will still need you to answer to them.
Of the earpiece.
Because I didn't want research again.
What is crisis?
Hello,
the basic
professional
question.
colleagues. Please, can we try to mute our mic so we can hear him properly? Thank you.
Yeah. So we ask ourselves, what the basic question, what is crisis? Crisis to me is an opportunity to benefit and make loss depending on strategic decisions made. So your decision, anything can be a crisis, and anything you can still benefit from whatever other people believe is a crisis. It depends on the strategic decisions you make. And the key thing about crisis is if you have the ability to benefit from crisis, then you will even be praying for crisis to occur. So let's say the kinds of crisis. Sam, please, can you put it on display mode? Thank you. So go to kinds of crisis. The next slide. Next slide. So kinds of crisis. We have operational crisis, which has to do with the product, the brand of an organization. We have media crisis, where a publication is put out there and it makes the organization start running helter-skelter, how to resolve it. We have market, crisis, whereby a competition comes out with a new brand or a new product, and that product will upstage either the market leader or other competitors in that industry. And we have industry and regulatory crisis, whereby the regulator itself is a major issue. Maybe they come up with a new policy, and that policy is not favorable to your organization or to the industry. We have the client. The client itself can be a crisis, especially when you have some CEOs that are, they become a major issue because they don't want to budge and take advice. We've seen the issue with the tomato paste, Erisco tomato paste. That is a typical example of the CEO being a crisis itself. Then a political crisis, which is what we want to talk about mainly. We talk about the political crisis, you talk about the government, you talk about electoral, talk about strike, you talk about protests, which is what Nigeria is currently experiencing now. Next slide. So Approaches. Next slide. Approaches to crisis. Have you gone to the next slide? The next slide is approaches to crisis. We have different ways, different organizations or institutions, even government, how they react or respond to a crisis situation. We have some of them respond this way: sailing with the wind. What is sailing with the wind? Sailing with the wind is when you just relax and hope, expect the problem to go away by itself. There are some crisis situations like that eventually the issue dies down. Then we have a fire brigade approach whereby nothing is done until there's a major issue. Then everybody keeps running helter-skelter. There's no control room. There's no SOP. That is, what's the full meaning of SOP again? But let me leave that one. So there's no SOP. There's no control room to mitigate the emergence of crisis. Then when the crisis comes, there's this a fire brigade approach to quench that fire. Then we have the fall guy approach, which is very, it happens in the political arena, whereby there is a crisis, then the best solution, the best approach is having somebody to take the fall. Somebody has to take the fall. If the president does something wrong, then somebody will have to blame it on the writer of his speech, that the writer put it there. You know, so that's how the fall guy approach. Then we have the pull the content down approach. I believe a lot of us have already gone through this one, where the client does not want to do the needful, but once the negative content gets out there, they'll just tell you, look, you have to pull this thing down. Pull it down, no matter what you do. Then once you pull it down, it dies down. They don't want to do anything again. They don't want to further to make sure. Then you have the strategic approach, which is the ethical way of dealing with the crisis. Comes with strategy, tacticals, and how to, the best way of uprooting the crisis from the roots. Then we have the deny everything we did and bury the bodies, whereby the client will just go for, we didn't do it. They will deny everything flat. So those are the approaches used to manage crisis. These are practical approaches, not academic approaches. So go to the next slide. Next slide, cause and effect. Crisis is nothing but cause and effect. That's what crisis is. It's an issue. There's a cause. Then most time people try to treat the symptom, which is the effect, and that is why you find recurring crisis that you felt you resolve at this maybe this year or this month comes again, because you are treating attacking the effect, which is the symptom. You are not attacking the cause, which is the root engine of the problem. So you find a situation in every crisis. There is okay. So in every crisis, there's someone to profit and there's someone to make a loss, because crisis does not become crisis in isolation. Somebody has to benefit from it, and somebody has to bear the loss. So once you remove the profit element and the loss, you can't call it a crisis anymore. So and usually crisis is usually connected to the person in that industry or the person that makes use of whatever it is. You find that those in FMCG, their crisis usually revolve around the consumer. The politicians, their crisis revolve around the electorate. A diver who dives every time, it is a diving that will kill that person. The policeman that chases some robbers, it's a gunshot that will kill that policeman. So that is where their crisis is. Your business is where your crisis is. That area where you thrive, that is where your crisis is. If you are in hospitality, you have a guest, your guest is not happy, that is crisis. Your guest, who is supposed to be a source of profit, turns to a source of loss automatically, because a crisis is not just about one side. It's two sides. It's two sides of the coin. It's profit and it's loss. Next slide. Depends on how you are able to manipulate it. Next slide. So calming the storm during unrest as an advisor. As an advisor, next slide. As an advisor, you have to realize that every crisis in government has the following DNA. With this DNA, you understand better why there will always be recurring crisis in government institutions. Because one, they have this bureaucratic information ecosystem whereby information is not given out freely, does not flow. And where in the absence of information flowing like a current or water, you find speculation. And from speculations, that's where you saw it in several governments before we got to this government, where people speculated. At the end of the day, we discovered that it wasn't the truth. The lack of merit in government institutions are well known for a lack of merit because they employ people who are not qualified for that position. You go to people who manage their information. They are not supposed to be the ones that manage.
The message
Hello, can you hear
out.
me?
You said
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but there's a disturbance. Let
There's somebody talking.
everybody should
Yeah.
mute.
Am I the only one who can't hear anything again? Is the speaker
Hello,
still
can you hear me?
speaking?
No, it's not just
Okay,
you.
we can
It
hear
is
you
back
now.
now.
We can hear you now. All right.
Okay. Okay, it's like because he gave me a message that the host did something, so I now got me muted. Okay, so you find information being handled by people who are not qualified to handle information in government agencies or government institutions, and that is a source of major crisis. Then you have multiple gatekeepers, whereby we have so many people representing the same principle, representing the same level of government, all speaking. At the end of the day, you find a different kind of messages coming out. Then when the message gets downlink or goes uplink, the whole dynamics of that message is no longer understood. It's no longer what it's supposed to be. Then you have a limited check and balance. We know that in government institutions, there's a very limited check and balance, and this leads to accountability, issues, accountability issues, because nobody's checking who is doing this or how accountable this person is handling this issue. Then we have the sacrifice. The sacrifice is about loyalty, placing loyalty over efficiency, whereby in government institutions or agencies, they are ready to sacrifice efficiency for loyalty. Everybody wants to cater to the boss. Then we now have the herald mentality, whereby the person at the top, even if they are not the highest person in that government institution, the person at the top has this mindset that he's like a demigod, and it becomes an issue. If they don't approve that communication, it does not go out. It does not go out, and you find sometimes activations or communication that should have left the ministry or been approved, by the agency, will be there until there's crisis. Next slide. Next slide. So normally every crisis, a crisis never starts when it starts. That's the truth. Crisis never starts when it starts, because crisis has already given you enough information, like what we call expo, has given you enough information, starting with trend, but you did not, especially in the government institutions. In the private sector, it is easier to resolve crisis at the stage of strength, because we have the mechanism. There's check and balance. There's all those things that I mentioned that is lacking in the public institution, is present in the corporate institution, whereby you have somebody to follow up, somebody to make sure this doesn't go wrong. So when there's a negative trend, somebody is quick to pick it up. Everybody picks it up and they quell it before it even migrates to issue, to become an issue. Then it doesn't get to the stage of crisis. So, but in government institution, we find this not present. So most times it is deliberately swept under the carpet, until it becomes a major issue, and then somebody's head has to roll for it. So there's no need going through the normal process, number one, which is pre-crisis, because we go to the next slide, because we're already at the stage of number 3, which is response. So response. Next slide, please. Next slide. So what to do at this stage? That is at the stage whereby it's already a crisis. How do you respond? How do you resolve this crisis? How do you resolve this issue? Next slide again. How do you resolve this issue when it's already a crisis? As a government advisor, because when we use the word advisor or we use the word spokesperson, it's supposed to represent the whole thing called public relations, because you are doing beyond just speaking. What you are doing, it goes beyond just you taking a microphone to represent your principal. So the first thing you have to do, you have to realize that resolving an unrest, a protest, it's not what you say. It's the strategy you put on ground. It's the strategy that will resolve it for you. Because these guys don't want to hear talk. They tell you, look, you are just trying to kind of weigh them down with the same lies that the government has been telling them all this while. So what they want to see is some physical, attempts, deliberate attempts, a strategy for resolving those things. So the first thing you have to do is, before you even go to engage the people protesting, the first thing you do is you do your own house cleaning, which is you approach your own government. You approach your government, you discuss with them, you table this thing, the request from the protesters. Say, look, this is what they are demanding. Tell us what we can offer these people, so that when I go before them, I have something to say. You don't just run off and because there's a crisis, they say go and talk to them. You two just run off and go and talk to them. No, you first have a meeting with your government. That is either your principal that is representing the government. You discuss what can you concede to this demand by these people. So once that is out of it, then the next thing you have to do is you discover who you have to meet. Next slide, please. You discover you find out who, you identify the people amongst them that you can discuss with and schedule a meeting. But the meeting you are going to schedule, your first meeting with them, either first or second meeting, it has to be a secret meeting. It has to be a secret meeting because if it goes south, you have deniability. If it doesn't go well, maybe there's a fallout, you have deniability. I know in PR most times we try to say, no, we have to say the truth. We have to also remember that you are representing your client. You are your first loyalty should be to your client, and your client as a government, a spokesperson or advisor or public relations person. Your client is the person you have to represent. It's not the public, but your client. So once it goes south, you have deniability. So that's the reason why it has to be in secret. Go to the next slide, please. But once that is out of the box, and you have, go to the next slide, and there's an agreement between the two parties, that government, you representing the government, and the rioters, or not rioters, the protesters. Next slide, please. Next slide. Once you have an agreement with them, next slide, please. Hello, next slide. So once you have an agreement with them, are you sure that anybody can hear me there?
We can hear you.
Yes,
Can hear you.
Okay.
Can hear you.
So
Theory, please adjust.
okay, so it has been adjusted now. Thanks. So once you have an agreement with them, you do not sign at the meeting. At the meeting, where in the secret, you do not sign at that meeting. Or you can sign there. You have it this way. You can sign there, then you have a ceremonial signing event whereby you invite the media. That is when you can talk. You don't just talk at the beginning when you don't have anything to say. That is when you can speak in unison with the protesters, and you now get the benefits that will come to the government. So next slide. But we also need to realize something, that this agreement you are making, in managing this situation properly, you have an agreement implementation committee whereby you elect some people. The slide has gone up. You elect some people amongst the protesters who are going to be representatives that will be liaising with the government. Their job is to make sure that the agreement is well implemented. They have to be monitoring the agreement, and they will be meeting at occasions. You, the government, you are, as the spokesperson, advisor, you are representing the government. You will ensure that there's a proper representation in form of maybe a plenary. You know, the normal thing in plenary whereby you meet. There's a kind of embossment for plenary, those things. So with those things, you have commitment from these leaders, and with that commitment, it will make sure that they become part of the government. So without any issue, whoever wants to go on strike the next time will have to go through those leaders. Next, okay, the slide is no longer coming up. Okay, let me just be saying it. So that's the strategic purpose of the committee. Is we have different strategic purpose of the committee. One is to keep the leaders of the protest busy. When you keep them busy, they will not have time to be thinking of protest, because they are already busy as part of the government, as part of the solution. They are already part of the solution. So they will be the ones calming down their colleagues that, look, we are working on it. Then another strategic purpose is these leaders will be insulators to the protesters. So whenever they want to have issues with the government, these are the people you use to insulate the crisis. Then there will be another one is they will be committed to their duties, as every monthly session attracts a plenary allowance. Once you have them under a committed allowance, that way they become so committed, they can even be spokespeople on behalf of the government. So to ensure no further uprising, this is very good. Then every agreement achieved, let's say in the future, you now achieve one or two things. You don't just celebrate it as a government. You invite these people to be part of it, and you now celebrate with them. So now, how to deny untruth against your principal? Let's assume there's a statement made against your principal. Let's go back to history, where prior to the 2015 election, that's during that period, where we have had the APC spokesman that claimed that Jonathan lied about his achievement in resuscitating the dead railway sector. You know, and there was this statement that I think was from Mr. Lai Mohammed that said the PDP government was actually, after they launched in Kano State, after they launched the railway in Kano State. They will now uproot everything, remove, uninstall the tracks. They will now uninstall the tracks and take it to another state. They now took it to Kaduna to go and launch the one of Kaduna. Then after they finish the one of Kaduna, they will now uninstall it and take it to another state. That was what APC put out there, and a lot of people believed it because of the way the spokespeople in PDP responded to such statement. They went on the defense, as usual. They went on the defense. They were antagonistic. They were, at war. They took up arms, and that is not the way to go to do this. APC asked Jonathan government to stop the lies about railway rehabilitation. Same thing. Aero 5 did the same thing, said a lot of things. The PDP spokesperson still went on the defensive. But the strategic thing they should have done, without that one would have quelled everything, destroyed that fallacy. That would have been to invite news editors from different newspapers. Invite news editors from different newspapers, because I believe that statement was one of the things that cost them that election. So they would have invited news editors from different newspapers, different major newspapers, major political presenters on TV. Invite these people for a media tour, media excursion. Take them to Kano. Let them see firsthand. Get an air-conditioned bus. Let them see firsthand the tracks are still there. Take them to Kaduna. Let them see firsthand that the tracks are there. That Kaduna is different from Kano. Nobody removed anything to come and fix in the other state. Take them again to another state. So once they see this thing, there's photography, there's a camera, everything will be captured. That would have destroyed the lies without you responding as a spokesperson. You don't need to be you have to be strategic in how you respond. It's not over the years we've seen one spokesperson fighting against the other spokesperson. Ruben Abati will say this, another APC person will say this. Ruben will reply. They will even insult each other. That is not the duty of a spokesperson. If it's something that is evident, you take the media, go there, show them you've destroyed that, you've demystified that lie without you saying a word. Without you saying a word. Then multiple gatekeepers crisis. In multiple gatekeepers crisis, we have, you can remember when Tinubu's media aide, Ajiri and Mr. Onanuga, they were contradicting themselves. Ajiri said something, Mr. Onanuga said something, Ajiri said another thing. So people were confused. This arises because there was no synergy, and both of them were doing relatively the same job. So once we have such, it's just like having the issue we also have in branding, where we have multiple branding. There's something there's a name we call it. It's a challenge whereby people do not recognize a brand. They see this brand today, the logo is looking different, whereas they are both emanating from the same company. The color is different, but it's from the same company. So it causes confusion. So that multiple gatekeeper crisis is a major challenge that can cause issues. And it was one of the things that newspapers captured, that there was no synergy in the spokesman of the government. Then government agencies and and how to protect your principal. How do you protect your principal as a public relations person, as a spokesperson, as an advisor? How do you protect your principal, especially when it's somebody their job has to be in the media glare every time? So let's go to the other slide, 2 slides after this one. Wando. The issue, the crisis with Wando and SEC under, I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'll just call it other name, under Guazo. So Guazo was the DG of SEC, and he had issues with, he was as a regulator, he had issues with Owando, and he wanted to take over the Owando franchise. But there was this tug of war. So I was part of that campaign. So we had to come up with different content, because it's not every time as a spokesperson or whatever you have to be developing content. Sometimes it has to be strategy, and the whole crisis it was created because Guazo did not manage the situation as a regulator, as a government person. And I don't know if you listen to the spokespeople under him, but it was not well managed, because whatever he threw out, we found several things to defend to use against him. And he now was playing politics that he should not have done. He had his own shareholders amongst Owando shareholders. He had his own shareholders. Then Owando itself has its own loyal shareholders. He invited the shareholders to a meeting. We had a whiff of that information. We now countered it by inviting he invited journalists for this shareholders meeting. We had that information. We now invited the same journalists and all the journalists that have to do with finance to our own event. We made sure we invited the timing favored us. We provided air-conditioned buses for them to take them. They came to our own event instead of Guazo's own sponsored or sponsored shareholders meeting, and that was how we countered him. And that is, but it's not always that you have an agency, a government agency person that the story is negative when they are in the public glare. We've seen Tony Elumelu harnessing his popularity to favor his brand. We've seen the NAFDAC DG also using her own platform to leverage positively the NAFDAC franchise. Then let me say this: crisis is not dead until you know how to benefit from crisis. If you cannot benefit from crisis, the crisis will resurface. It is that when you start benefiting from crisis, that is when you can really tell yourself that yes, this crisis is really gone. It's not going to resurface. If you remember the Indomie crisis, the contamination is the one that just happened last year. It led to the extent that Indomie was going down. The demand for Indomie was going down during the crisis. But after the crisis, sales spiked beyond the time this crisis even started. That was because we were able to manage that situation well. And online, I wish the listen was showing here. I wish the PowerPoint was showing so that you see the comments of people about how random people that we never knew, how they were impressed with the way we managed it. Sales for Indomie went up beyond the time the crisis happened. That is how you know, because that the crisis is dead, because you start benefiting from the crisis. So good reputation, a lot of people believe good reputation is when you do not have a crisis. Any company or brand that does not experience crisis has good reputation. No, that is not good reputation. Good reputation, either for a government or for an organization, is when you have crisis and you are able to manage it and it does not affect the brand negatively. Rather, the brand continues to blossom. That is how you know that your brand has a good reputation. So it's because it's easy to misunderstand and say, okay, this brand does not have crisis. Oh, the brand has a good reputation. That brand has not been tested. When the brand is tested, that is when you actually know if the brand has good reputation. So go down to the slide so that people will see the comments made. Yes, no, go down to the next slide. The next slide. The very next slide. after this one. No, the next slide, after, not before, after. I just want people to see the benefit, how, because people see what happened. People appreciate what happened. So go to the next slide after the 2 slides after this one. No, down. Go down, not up. You are going up.
What
Yes,
is written on
slide.
that?
Yes, this is it. So now you see random people we do not know. See, when the crisis with this arose when there was crisis with Risco tomato. So people were commenting that now, but Indomie didn't arrest anyone. Now continued with their business. Another person said Indomie had the best PR and managed their product scandal well. That is the point he is making. Business growth and fall is not emotions; it's understanding the system. So Indomie did. Another person said Indomie didn't arrest people. They leveraged on bad news spread to champion good news spread till the good overtook the bad. And now noodles are called Indomie by everybody. So you see the benefits. You benefit of a good brand. That is when you know the benefit of a good brand. It's not the absence of crisis. It is how they overcome crisis at the end of the day. So go down again. I've been to this place. Go down. So your clients, go down to your client's truth matters. That's the last slide. Yeah. So your client's truth matters. In public relations, I've had instances whereby we believe there's a universal truth that must be told. No, I keep telling some of my colleagues, the truth that matters is your client's truth. You have to learn to position your client because truth has to do with perception. It has to do with perspective. Perspective differ. So because perspective differ, perception will differ. We see things from different angles. My client suffered a loss. Everybody suffered a loss does not mean and they don't want to fight for it does not mean my client should not fight for his own. So you have to learn to see your client because there are some briefs you also get and some PR people they say no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to take up this brief because it doesn't appeal to my morals. This is a profession. I believe as a profession, it will have to take things in a professional way. A marketer will not say no, this does not appeal to my moral. A lawyer will not say no, this person, I don't like this person. I feel he committed it. He will still do his job. An advertiser, same thing. So public relation is a profession, and if you have a client, you have to learn how to harness your client's own truth and tell their own truth. Everybody, just like a story writer, you tell your story. Everybody tells their own story. So you do not withdraw from it and say no because this does not appeal to my moral standing. Oh, I will not take this brief. So your client also deserves to air their own truth. As a spokesperson, but you must also understand there's a difference between exaggeration and blatant lie. Everything we do in PR and advertising and marketing, most things, not let me just shy away from the word everything. Most things we do in PR, marketing, and other things is embellish what is already there. Because if you do not embellish it, nobody will know that it exists. Just like a popular advertising saying that if you blink in the dark, nobody will know. So advertising makes you people see you're blinking. So next slide. Thank you everybody for listening. I know I'm speaking to my bosses and people that have taught me over the years. So I'm open to questions and I'm open to corrections too and your own position. Thank you very much for listening.
Wow. Thank you very much, our own Anthony. As usual, I am sure you have accepted that really speaking to professionals who knows all the onions and the pepper and the salt on how to add to this story. There would be questions, there will be answers. And of course, today, because of the importance of this theme, we might also need to have some summaries, especially from people who differ in some points that you've made. And so please, we like to have about 5 people for questions or whatever to please show by raise of hand, and we can pick and start from there. Yes. Oh, we've seen the Amazon in the house. Mrs. Nkechi Ali Balogo, you have our attention.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Good
ESCO
afternoon.
members, council members in the house, fellows, and my esteemed colleagues. I see fellow Peter Oyene here. Good afternoon. Yeah, let me start by commending our presenter today for a thorough job well done. 2 areas I actually want to point out there. First of all, there's a comment he made that well, I won't say I'm worried about, even though he tried to explain it. That when you are dealing with a crisis, the truth that matters is your client's truth. Personally, I think we should be careful with that kind of statement. I know what you are trying to say. Yes, we manage truth, but public relations will work with truth. Whether we like it or not, public relations is an ethical profession. We build and mend relationships. We build reputation. I don't see us building reputation with things that are morally wrong. Okay? Yes, you may be able to manage crisis, but let's take Johnson & Johnson crisis, for instance, the Tylenol case, even though it's old. But you could see that the clients knew they were wrong and they owned up. So because they owned up, they had the public's empathy. Okay, so I don't particularly agree with you that the truth that matters is your client's truth. It matters to the service provider or the agency that is working for them to know the truth. It is not left to the agency to know how to manage the truth. If the truth is such that is not going to help your clients, it now becomes your responsibility to know how you are going to manage it. So I don't think the truth that matters is that of your client. So that's aside. Number 2, yes, you have given us every rudiment we needed to know about crisis management, the types and all that. But I thought we're going to use, today is a very good opportunity for us to actually turn your session into a kind of workshop or a plenary session, you know, and talk about the protest at hand today. Because I noticed that in Nigeria, we coming from a mediation point of view, at some point in my life, I was a focal person for West African Network for Peace Building. We talk about early warning signs. This is a protest that we had early warning signs, both written and unwritten. So I was expecting you're going to use this to let us know what should have been done. We've had a lot of issues that led to this crisis. For instance, the removal of subsidy. What could have been done? I think in Lagos State, we've handled that somehow. But these are two crisis points. I needed us to do application, not theory today. I was expecting that we're going to use what you are teaching us today to apply to knowledge so that we are able to various organs here of different organizations will go back and see what they can use to apply to knowledge and handle the crisis situation that will arise from this protest in their organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, can we have Mr. Oyeneye, our fellow? You have our attention, sir.
Okay, my chair.
Yes, sir.
The chairman, Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, Lagos State Chapter, the House, council members, our guest speaker, ladies and gentlemen. I want to appreciate the chapter for putting this program together. And this topic is very apt, just like Elikene said, because we have a crisis in Iran, in the country, and to bring a very apt topic today. Now, what I want to say, one of them, fellow Elikene, has addressed it, the issue of the truth. I would just want to add that as long as your client or our clients do not do the right thing, we will find it difficult to use PR to assist them. Because PR is based on the truth and nothing but the truth. So we should always emphasize that, see, let's do the right thing. Let's do our own work. Let's deliver quality. Let's listen to the publics. When we listen to them, we know what they want. We adjust to it. You have to adjust to what your clients want. And that will make public relations easy. Now, not as if a country cannot have a crisis or a company may not run into a crisis. But one, what have you been doing? Because what you've been doing, your antecedent will assist you. People will even come and say, oh, this company is not like this, or oh, this organization is not like this. So what have we been doing? It's very, very important. And now in the crisis, we should explain our stand. We should explain our stand. This is what we stand for. This is what we believe. And explain what you are doing to fix the problem. You cannot have a problem, but what are you doing to fix the problem? I've monitored the news media from morning till this afternoon about what the government has been saying, what people are saying, and the rest of them. I see that most of the government spokesperson, they just want to force or what the government is doing. It won't work. It is our government. We voted that government in, and that government is listening to us. There is a particular policy of this government that has scattered everything. It has affected every sector of the economy. It's of the removal of subsidy. Now, if we remove the subsidy, it's now about 1 year or more than 1 year. We have not seen the benefit. And this is how the government will come and say, just wait, just give us 1 year, just give us 2 years. Before you know it, it will be 8 years and nothing is done. So it's not for saying you will soon feel it. No, no. I think what will have happened was that when the president came, find out why the refineries were not working. Fix the refineries. If you fix the refinery, you cannot talk about removing subsidy. But we have not done anything, we have removed the subsidy. And that is what has landed us where we are now. A loaf of bread we're buying for 500 pre-subsidy, you have subsidy. You are buying for 1,005, 1,800, 2,000. So all the figures they are really now, government has done this, government has done this. You see,
Why are you not winding up?
Thank you, sir.
It's what we see on the table that we work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May we have Amotayo Okeunmi?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and fellow PR professionals. Thank you so much, Ma, and thanks to the presenter. So my question is this. So I recently was engaged by a parent who actually shared the decision of a school, and the decision has to do with suspending the students because a particular picture trended online, and in their opinion, it was something that brought disreputation to the brand, like the school brand. And so they decided to suspend the students. And from a PR point of view, I just want to confirm if this is not emotional or just the right thing to do. From a PR point of view, I would have thought that the school would have not been selfish as to trying to protect its image by giving a principal punishment to students who clearly made a mistake. And what stood out for me was saying that your action brought disgrace to the school, and there was no part to how does this act also affect the student in terms of losing an entire session because of their action. So it brings me to the question as to, in practicing public relations, we are very big on reputation management. But reputation management is just an aspect because it's a whole gamut of human relations, managing the entire stakeholder chain in whatever your organization is doing. So how does a brand draw the line? Because I'm sure they would have gotten some advice from different corners to say, if you do this, this will make a statement. If you do this, this will set the records. But what happens to what other stakeholders have to say in trying to protect your image, but not considering the effect or impact on other people down the chain? And the Erisco example clearly comes to mind because in actual sense, the CEO of Erisco was clearly defending the sanity of his brand by coming out to arrest, by coming out to defend, by coming out to sue. But he was not sensitive to what other stakeholders and people who are silently listening would think about his action. So I'll just really like for feedback on how to properly do PR and be sensitive to what other stakeholders involved will think, other than just its reputation management. We would do it even if head rolls or people die in the process. So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Elikene, would you remember all of this? Or would you want to take the ones so far?
Yeah, let me just take the ones I've gotten so far. So thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Ikechi, for that question. Well, like you talked about the truth. Yes, I agree with you in both questions. I agree with your statement. What I'm saying is that you embellish your own truth. You understand? Everybody, if something happens, everybody has their own say to it. You embellish your own truth does not mean you are kind of exaggerating or how do I put this? I need an instance to kind of put it in proper perspective. It does not mean you are telling a lie. It does not mean you are telling a lie. Okay? So, but it's just you blowing your own trumpet. So that's the angle I'm taking it from. And it's not in every situation. Sometimes something might happen. Your best way to handle it is for you to come clean and say, okay, yes, we are at fault, and that's a plus. That's a plus for you. But I've seen situations whereby it's not in all cases. It's not in all cases. Sometimes you find an organization when they do that, and that's the end of the organization. We've seen this on some organizations go down totally like that. So those are the aspects. It's not in totality. It's not in every situation. That's the inference I'm making. It's not in every situation. But yes, I get your stand. Truth is very key. That is very sacrosanct in what we do. Then for the protest, yes, from the title of the presentation, you can see there that it has to do with when the crisis has already started. There's a slide before that where I started with crisis. That slide, I stated the process, pre-crisis, when it's at the trend level. So, but I couldn't go, I couldn't extend it because I was asked to start from that particular, how to calm the situation, not how to kind of mitigate it, that stop it from occurring, but how to when it already happened. So that's the reason. Then the last question. Well, I think there's always a way. If the school has a good PR person, they will look for a way that will benefit everybody. It is when the school does not have the perfect strategy or solution, that is when somebody has to pay the price. But when you have the right, the perfect solution to your strategy, both the student and the school will also benefit from it. We've seen situations whereby something happens, you think that this will happen. At the end of the day, the person rewards the person. But that's not saying that this is big, but there's a way a PR person will strategize and look for a middle ground that will benefit everybody. It will benefit both the student, benefit the school. I don't mean you have to reward the student, but there's a meeting ground whereby nobody will be sacrificed.
Thank you. Again, we will look at that topic, and I think that sentence should not be there. For what we are talking about is that truth is related to who is telling the story. Your client version deserves to be told. It's been answered. And it's very clear that as public relations professional, practitioners, be whatever nomenclature is being used, we stand for the truth. And truth does not have amendments. It doesn't have A or B. There might be some other people saying this, but your version must be correct and must be truthful. And so it is not your client version. It is what it is. It is the way it is, the truth. It doesn't have version. It stands straight and on its own and all the time. Anyway, so
Madam Chair, please, can you allow me just to... Madam Chair, please, can you allow me just to respond to one sentence he made? Please, please. I won't stay long. Please.
1 minute.
It's even too much. Sir, with all due respect, I'm saying all this because we have younger practitioners here. You also use the word that you say you embellish the truth. Public relations will not embellish. We are not spinners. When you embellish a truth, which means you add it, decorate it, and add some untruth to it. So maybe it's your choice of words, but I needed to correct it because of the younger ones coming. I know you are an expert, I've read about you, you're good, but we do not embellish truth. We do not, we do not embellish truth. We pick up the truth and manage it and know which one is suitable for our audience and time appropriately. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Christopher Udo. 1.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I want to really commend your executive committee for what you guys are doing. Now, my question is concerning the present protests in the country. Now, the Senate President came out with a speech saying that protesters can go to the street and protest, that he is going to be in his mansion eating. And we have a crisis at hand. Mr. Anthony, please, is that right in calming the storm? That's my question. Thank you very much, ma'am, for the opportunity.
Thank you. And we'll take Lloyd Onyike before you answer the question, please. Anthony. Lloyd.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairperson and eminent members of the body and ladies and gentlemen. Much of what I want to say has been treated by Madam Nkechi. Basically, that there's a difference between spinning, managing the truth, and understanding, reminding ourselves rather that we are trained to uphold public good, the interest of the public, and the truth as well. So what I want to add is that it would mean that our job largely would also be to function as a mini quality control within the system, the ecosystem where we operate. And it also agrees with Mr. Anthony's, the lecturer's submission, that we preempt crisis to see how we can ensure that rather than crisis happening before we begin to run helter-skelter, we're able to guide our principles against such traps and pitfalls. So I'd like to just say that in essence, we are most likely to operate as mini quality control persons, because if you know that your product, your tomato paste or whatever it is, doesn't have certain ingredients, or the machines your company produces has some defects, all right, and you are able to ensure that this doesn't go out, you are already doing the job of managing that crisis before it happens, before it becomes a full-blown problem for everyone. So I think also beyond managing the image and reputation of the firms that we work for, the government that we will work for, we need to also ensure that the right and the truth, the ethics that we are all talking about majorly this afternoon, is adhered to upfront before it becomes an embarrassment for the system where we work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Yeye Shabajo, please. 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, I extend my respect to you, Madam Chairman, EXCO, fellows, council members, and my colleagues here. I want to actually say that you are sitting comfortably well and doing what is actually pleasing to all of us. Kudos. I would like to lend my voice to the issue of protecting the principal. So much has been said. There is a comment that I watched on Arise TV where the person that came on, a journalist and a Democrat, as he was described said that Mr. President should not come and address us because it is immaterial. I would like for the speaker to please address those two incidents. The person before me had mentioned the comment of the Senate President. So I would actually like to hear him address those two incidents. But before I stop, I would like to add my voice too to what my sister Nkechi Alibalugu said. Public relations is about professionalism and excellence. There's no embellishment to it. Otherwise, it comes to propaganda or whatever. There's nothing like anything but the truth, professionalism, and excellence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And finally, I'm saying, okay, we'll just take these two and we'll summarize for the day. Ni Egbe, please. And after you, Rita Alino.
Thank you so much for the privilege, ma'am. Please, distinguished professionals, thank you. I want to ask the speaker, I mean, every one of us is asking, so what should the government do now? We've seen all sorts of reactions. I've seen, for instance, that in Lagos State, we saw distribution of rice, maybe just to calm down protesters. We also saw the governor distributing some machines, pots, all sorts of things empowering. We have had government officials having different, during Galali would say, for instance, it is the right of people to protest. Some others will say this is not the time. So, in fact, the amount of discussion, there's a bedlam of confusion all over the place. So I want you please, as our able facilitators, to just give a roadmap. What should the government do, especially when we're in the heart of the crisis now? Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. And finally, Rita Alino, 1 minute.
Good evening, Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairman. And good evening, Chair. Good evening, distinguished colleagues, fellows, ESCO members, and National Council members. My question is to the guest, and my question is kind of similar with the last speaker. I was going to say, I mean, using the recent, Madam Nkechi also clearly said that we should look at, I would have, loved to see applications, especially using the recent crisis that is happening in Nigeria, which is the nationwide protest, as a case study. What would you rather advise would be a strategic approach to satisfy all stakeholders? And that would mean both the government and the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you.
Okay.
Elikene.
Let me start with the last question, which is what will I if I was a person, what will I do any different to resolve the issue? The first thing is that there was a demand, there was a list of demands. If the government is truly interested in resolving it, that should form part of the meeting they will have with these people. Like what I stated in the presentation. I said there has to be a negotiation. Identify the leaders, discuss with the leaders. Then those agreements, those things they are asking for, the demands, there will not be peace without you giving them those demands. So you have those demands, then make them part of those that will implement the demands they are asking for. That way, they'll be partakers in the solution. So that is the last question. So you have to give them what they ask for. You have to give them, even if you can't give them everything. If it's 50% of what they ask for, you can achieve. You give them that 50%, but insist that they partake in implementing it. Partaking in implementing it, that is where they now have that mindset that, oh, since we are part of it, we monitor this thing. That makes them go off the street. It's when you tell them go home, we'll do it, that they will not believe you. But conscript them into part of the solution. When they become part of the solution, that's when you find a more workable agreement with them. Then the next question, government distributing rice. That is treating, like what I mentioned in the presentation, is treating the symptom instead of the cause. It's cause and effect. They are treating the effect. They are not treating the cause. The solution is still in the agreement they will have that, okay, this is what we can achieve and we want you to be part of it. Not giving rice. Rice will not solve the problem. Rice is just treating the symptom. It will not go away. After some months, they will come back again. But once you have a system whereby these people protesting are part of the solution, they manage themselves, they stop themselves from going on the street by themselves without you playing a major role anymore. They won't get to the street because they are part of the solution. They are driving the solution. There is the statement about the Senate president. The Senate president, the issue with the Senate president, I don't think it's a spokesperson issue because it's something. This is not the first time he has said something like that, and he usually says it while on the seat in the Senate. He says it while being on the seat in the Senate. He doesn't say it or somebody kind of. So there's nothing a spokesperson can do to curtail him. You can't curtail him because he's on the seat. Then the other question. The president that's the handlers of the president not allowing people to come to have an interview with the president. I don't know if you have an issue with the words they use, because they shouldn't have allowed you to hear what they tell the president or what they say. But he's trying to protect his principal, because we all know that it might be a disaster in line with everything that is happening in the country. There's every possibility that it might be a disaster if the president speaks to the media. So the handler did the right thing from his perspective, which is to protect his principal. Don't allow him access to the media so that he doesn't goof. And when he goofs, that becomes the next this. He might say something that will affect his government. So the best thing is to shield him. Have somebody else to do the speaking. Another spokesperson will come and address, not the president himself. So then in the issue of the truth again, I think if you remember the Owando and SEC issue, SEC, it was a regulator. SEC made some statements about Owando. As a regulator, it became a case of David and Goliath. Owando had to go underground to come up with their own truth. It's like a situation whereby you witness a murder take place in front of you, but you are framed for it by the authority, maybe the police. They frame you for it. You go to the court, and you are framed for it. You go to jail. You deserve to tell your own story. That is just what I'm saying. If you are my client, you deserve to tell your own story. Your own story might be the minority report, but you deserve to tell your own story and broadcast it everywhere. Because sometimes the legal truth might not be the real truth. There was a time when slavery was legal, and then it was acceptable everywhere. So I feel sometimes the acceptable truth might not cut it out for your client sometimes. That's just what I'm saying. The client also deserves to say their own truth.
Okay. That's it. More of telling their own story. Thank you so much. Well, I know that this topic, we might have to